There is a kind of exhaustion that sleep cannot fix. A quiet heaviness that follows you through the day. You wake up tired, even after a full night's rest. And the strange part is, nothing has actually gone wrong yet. But your mind doesn't seem to understand that. It keeps running, thinking, replaying, predicting things that haven't happened. What if this fails? What if I lose everything? What if I'm not ready? And without realizing it, you've already lived through the worst-case scenario 100 times in your head. This is what worry does. It doesn't wait for problems to arrive. It creates them early. It makes you feel the weight of a future that may never come. And somehow, you start believing that this is necessary. That if you worry enough, you'll be prepared. That if you think through every possible outcome, you'll be safe. But here's the truth. Most people never stop to question. What if your worry isn't protecting you at all? What if it's slowly draining your energy, stealing your focus, and quietly taking away your ability to actually live your life? Because the truth is, worry doesn't make you stronger. It makes you tired. Not just physically, but emotionally, mentally. Deeply tired in a way that builds up over time until one day you don't even recognize yourself anymore. You become more cautious, but less alive. More alert, but less present. More prepared for danger, but disconnected from peace. And the scariest part, you think this is normal. You think this is just how life works. But what if it's not? What if the thing you've been holding on to as a form of protection is actually the very thing that's holding you back? In this video, we're going to uncover a powerful truth that most people ignore for years. Your worry is not protecting you. It is exhausting you. And it begins in a way that feels completely reasonable. You tell yourself, I just want to be prepared. So you think a little more. You analyze a little deeper. You run through every possible outcome just to make sure you don't get caught off guard. At first it feels like control, like you're staying one step ahead of life. But slowly, something shifts. Because the more you think, the more scenarios your mind creates. And the more scenarios you create, the less certain everything begins to feel. What started as preparation turns into overthinking. What felt like awareness turns into anxiety. And without realizing it, you are no longer solving problems. You are feeding them. Your mind becomes a place where every small decision feels heavy. Every risk feels dangerous. Every unknown feels like a threat that must be avoided at all costs. But here's the truth most people miss. Control is not about thinking more. Control is about knowing when to stop. Because real control doesn't come from trying to predict everything. It comes from trusting yourself to handle things when they actually happen. Worry tries to give you certainty. But life was never designed to be certain. And the more you chase that certainty, the more anxious you become. You start double-checking everything, second-guessing your choices, replaying conversations, imagining outcomes that haven't even begun. Not because you are weak, but because you've trained your mind to believe that thinking more means being safer, when in reality, it just means being more exhausted. Because no matter how much you think, you can't control everything. And deep down, you already know that. But your mind keeps trying anyway. And this is where the real damage begins. Because worry doesn't just stay in your mind. It spreads. It moves into your body, your energy, your daily life. You start feeling tired, even on days when you haven't done much. Your shoulders feel heavier. Your chest feels tight. Your thoughts feel louder than everything around you. Not because something bad has happened, but because your mind has been preparing for it over and over again. You are fighting battles that don't even exist yet, and your body doesn't know the difference. To your body, imagining a problem feels almost the same as experiencing it. So every what if, every worst case scenario, every fear you replay in your head, it all adds up, little by little, until you feel drained without a clear reason why. This is the trap of worry. It convinces you that you're being responsible, but in reality, you are exhausting yourself before life even asks anything from you. Think about that for a moment. How many times have you lost sleep over something that never happened? How many days have you spent feeling anxious about a future that turned out to be completely fine? And yet, your energy is already gone. Your peace is already disturbed. Your mind is already tired. This is not protection. This is self-inflicted pressure. Because real challenges in life require energy, clarity, focus. But worry takes all of that away before the challenge even arrives. So when the moment actually comes, you're not stronger. You're already worn out. And the hardest part is, you don't even realize that it was never the situation that drained you. It was the constant anticipation of it. And once your energy is drained by things that have not even happened yet, something else begins to disappear. Your ability to see the present clearly. Because worry has a way of pulling your mind out of the moment you are actually living. You may be sitting with someone you love, but your thoughts are somewhere else. You may be eating a meal, but your mind is calculating tomorrow. You may be working on something important, but half of your attention is trapped inside a fear that has no shape yet. And slowly, life stops feeling real. Not because life is empty, but because you are no longer fully there to receive it. This is what worry steals from you. Not only your peace, not only your energy, but your presence. And presence is where wisdom lives. You cannot make clear decisions when your mind is drowning in imaginary disasters. You cannot hear your own intuition when fear is louder than truth. You cannot enjoy what is still good in your life when your attention is always searching for what might go wrong. And this is why worry becomes so dangerous. It makes you believe the future is more important than the present. But the present is the only place where you can actually do something. You cannot fix tomorrow while abandoning today. You cannot build a better life while constantly escaping the moment in front of you. So maybe the answer is not to think harder. Maybe the answer is to return. Return to your breath. Return to the small task in your hands. Return to the person in front of you. Return to what is real. Because most of the time, your life is not asking you to solve everything at once. It is only asking you to be here, calm enough to see clearly, strong enough to take the next step, and honest enough to admit that many of the fears controlling you are not happening in your life. They are only happening in your mind. And maybe the hardest truth to accept is this: not everything in life can be predicted. Not everything can be planned. And not everything needs to be figured out before it happens. But your mind resists this idea because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. It feels unsafe. So you try to fill that uncertainty with more thinking, more planning, more control. You tell yourself, if I can just see it coming, I can handle it. But life doesn't work that way. Some things will surprise you. Some things will go wrong, no matter how much you prepare. And some of the most important moments in your life will arrive without warning. Worry tries to prepare you for everything, but in doing so, it traps you in a constant state of tension. You are always on guard, always alert, always bracing for something that hasn't even arrived. And over time, This doesn't make you stronger. It makes you rigid. You stop taking chances. You hesitate more. You avoid situations that could actually help you grow, because your mind has convinced you that risk is something to fear instead of something to face. But growth has never come from certainty. Growth comes from stepping into the unknown and learning as you go, from trusting that even if things go wrong, you will find a way through it. You always have. Think about your past. Every challenge you once feared, you eventually handled. Every moment you thought would break you, somehow you survived it. Not because you predicted it perfectly, but because you adapted. Because you responded. Because you were stronger than you thought. And that's the part worry never lets you see. It doesn't remind you of your strength. It only reminds you of your fear. So instead of trying to control everything, maybe it's time to trust something deeper. Not the illusion of certainty, but your ability to face whatever comes. And when you begin to trust your ability to face life, something inside you starts to soften. You stop confusing calmness with weakness. Because for a long time, you may have believed that if you are not worried, you are not being serious. If you are not tense, you are not being responsible. If you are not constantly thinking about what could go wrong, then maybe you are being careless. But that is not true. Calmness is not carelessness. Peace is not ignorance. And silence inside your mind does not mean you have stopped caring. It means you have finally stopped punishing yourself for things you cannot fully control. A calm person is not someone who has no problems. A calm person is someone who refuses to let every problem take over their entire soul. They still prepare, they still pay attention, they still take action, but they do not allow fear to become the voice that leads their life. Because panic does not create wisdom, pressure does not always create strength, and worry does not always mean love, responsibility, or protection. Sometimes, worry is just fear wearing a responsible face. And this is where real maturity begins. When you can look at a difficult situation without immediately surrendering your peace to it. When you can say, yes, this matters. Yes, I need to handle it. But I do not need to destroy myself before I even begin. That is strength. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that tries to prove itself to everyone. But the quiet kind. The kind that breathes before reacting. The kind that thinks clearly before deciding. The kind that understands. Life will always have uncertainty, but you do not have to become uncertain inside. Because the more peaceful your mind becomes, the more powerful your actions become. And maybe this is what you have needed all along. Not more fear, not more pressure, not more endless thinking, but a calmer mind, strong enough to face life without letting life break your spirit. And if you keep living this way, there will come a moment when you stop feeling truly alive. Not because life has no meaning, but because you've spent so much time protecting yourself from pain, that you've also protected yourself from living. You hesitate more. You trust less. You hold back your words, your choices, your dreams, not because you don't want them, but because your mind has trained you to expect something to go wrong. And slowly, your world becomes smaller. Suffer. But en pied. This is the quiet cost of constant worry. It doesn't destroy your life all at once. It shrinks it, little by little, day by day, until one day you look back and realize you were always waiting, waiting for the right time, waiting for certainty, waiting for fear to disappear. But it never did, because fear doesn't disappear when you obey it. It grows, and the more you listen to it, the more control it takes, until it becomes the voice that decides everything for you. Where you go, what you say, who you become. And the most painful truth is, the life you're afraid of losing, you're already losing it. Not to failure, not to other people, but to your own constant anticipation of what might go wrong. So ask yourself honestly, how much of your life have you already given to worry? How many opportunities have you walked away from just because your mind said it's too risky? How many moments of peace have you traded for a future that never came? Because at some point, you have to decide, will you keep living like this, or will you finally choose to take your life back from the fear that has been quietly controlling you? Because you were never meant to live in survival mode forever. You were meant to live fully, even if that means facing uncertainty, even if that means feeling afraid, and choosing to move forward anyway. And maybe you don't need to eliminate every fear to finally feel at peace. Maybe you don't need perfect certainty to start living your life. Because the truth is, peace was never something waiting for you in the future. It has always been something you choose in the present. Not by controlling everything, but by letting go of the illusion that you ever could. You don't need to know exactly how everything will turn out. You just need to trust that whatever happens, you will handle it one step at a time, just like you always have. So instead of asking, what if everything goes wrong? Start asking, what if I'll be okay, no matter what happens? Because that is where real strength begins. Not in endless thinking, not in constant worry, but in quiet confidence, in the ability to face life without running from it, in the courage to move forward even when you don't have all the answers. So, take a breath, slow down your thoughts, come back to this moment, because this moment is not as dangerous as your mind makes it seem, and your life is not something you need to survive. It's something you are meant to live, fully, calmly, and on your own terms.